Good morning. This is another training video for social media, mainly Facebook groups. It seems like we're still having a lot of trouble. Sorry, let me just. It seems like we're still having a lot of trouble understanding what your function is, what your job is as a virtual assistant. Your job is to start conversations. Conversations lead to engagement and building trust. When you build trust, then eventually you turn it into a client, a paying client. But first, you have to start a conversation. You can't build trust without starting a conversation. So the question is, how do you start 5, 10, 20, 100 conversations or 1,000 conversations at the same time? Because from 1,000 conversations, you might get engagement with 10. Right? If you start one conversation, it may not go anywhere. This is why you start with 1,000 conversations. From 1,000, you may get 100 people to respond on a group post. From 100 people, you might get 10 engagement, and from 10, you might get 3, 4, or 5 that you have, a private conversation, either on Zoom or Facebook or Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever the conversation. But you have to start with very large numbers. If you don't start with 1,000 conversations, then you are just wasting your time. Okay. So you have to start, you have to use technology, you have to use Dragon Naturally Speaking, as I talked about in other videos. You have to use leverage tools, you have to use stepping stone relationships to connect with end users. Stepping stone relationships are, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and so on. So depending on what your product is, whether you're building basements or building custom homes or doing odd jobs or whatever, or power washing, it doesn't matter what the product is. You find out who the stepping stone relationships are. You find a group or you create a group on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you start engaging with these people by asking thought-provoking questions. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what this looks like in real life. Sorry, I thought I wasn't recording for a second. I scared myself. Share screen, share. Okay. Now I need to move some of this stuff so I can. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. And obviously, the apps or the tabs that I have open now are probably the tabs you should have open as well. Calendar, text now for communicating with people. If you're not trained to communicate with people yet with voice, then don't worry about it. But Grammarly for sure, because whenever you type something, especially if English is your second language, do not post anything without testing it and fixing it on Grammarly Professional, not Grammarly Free, Grammarly Professional. Okay. And I'm sure you can get, 5 or 10 people to use the same account by using the same login credentials. Okay, so everything that you write first is written on Grammarly Professional. Then you use Dragon Naturally Speaking to create commands, and you copy and paste from Grammarly to a command tab, and then you can reuse those commands. As I mentioned before, I have on Grammarly probably 150 different commands that I keep updating depending on what it is. This is one of the commands I created. It's tire kickers. It's sales for a sales strategy. Okay. And I'll show you what that means. So I say, sales one, and this shows up. I say sales two, another one shows up. I say sales three as a command, another email comes up. Okay. Then obviously there's things to do. These are all the commands that I've written over the last 2 years. So you know how to use this is a Google Docs. So you go Control Find, and it's going to take a second. This is not a regular computer that I'm using. Control Find. It's taking a few minutes because it's a very long document. And once the find window comes up, unresponsive, okay. And once there it is. And once you type in your search word, and it could be a question mark, and it shows you all the questions that we've asked, so you can ask questions on posts, okay? But I'll show you an example, and we'll come back to this. So here's a group, and obviously you're going to target whatever group that is relevant to the client or your boss and the product they're working. So you know, chances are it's going to be construction related. So all these groups will apply. This one is plumbing hacks and professional discussion. So to do with plumbing. And what I do is I write a question. And once I write a question on Grammarly, then I do a search, in this case, plumbing. I do a search for groups under this tab, groups that have anything to do with plumbing. All the plumbing groups come up, and I open a tab for each group, and sometimes I have 20 or 30 tabs open, which is going to slow down your computer, so you have to make sure that the tab is dormant until you activate it. So you open, if you don't know how to do that, then open 3 at a time and keep going back and forth to a new group. Copy and paste the conversation, post it. It's always better to use a picture. I rarely use pictures. As in this discussion, I didn't use a picture, but it's a good idea to use a picture whenever possible, okay? Obviously, this one has 115 comments already. And what do you do when someone says your plumbing quote is too high and you are too expensive? It's only a simple job. Anyone can do it. Or you can say, my brother-in-law can do plumbing work. You know, I can get my brother-in-law to do this job. And what you're trying to do is get engagement, in this case, with plumbers, okay? If this was a real estate group, obviously I would be trying to get engagement from real estate agents or mortgage brokers or home inspectors or whatever the group is. The principles are the same, okay? You're trying to engage with them, such as real estate agents have an issue finding clients, right? Most companies have an issue finding clients. So sales related or employee related or culture related or anything that is deeper and thought-provoking is generally a good question. And test different questions and different strategies, but you want to come from a perspective that you are a plumber or you are a real estate agent or you are a mortgage broker, okay? Because if they see that you're trying to sell them something, then they're not going to engage. You know, to give you an example, this one here is construction tips fun fails. And this one I did post a question, but I posted it on obviously a construction related picture, right? Question: what are your thoughts on subs asking other subs for their information on job site, right? So it's a vague question for a reason. The reason why we ask kind of vague questions is so to allow that conversation to go in 20 different directions, okay? Then you start narrowing it down. You know, you could talk about non-compete. You don't want your subs to be stealing your clients or your employees or your other subcontractors. And this is how you get engagement. This one already has 354 comments. I've had posts that had over 600 or 700 comments, okay? So I dare you to create a post that has more than 700 comments, and I'm sure we can get you some type of reward to do that. but your response has to be very polite and engaging whenever possible. Okay. And again, this is a way. The reason why you're doing this is to create engagement. Once you create engagement, then you can create conversations. Here's a conversation starting on the Facebook group. Eventually this conversation will go to one-to-one. And once you get, 2 or 3 responses from one person, then you can ask for a connection request, right? And of course, Facebook doesn't allow me to do that because I've asked for too many already. So then once you have 3 or 4 responses from this person, then you can send them an email and even copy and paste what they said and what you said onto the conversation so they can associate why you're contacting them. And you can say something like, I didn't want to say anything privately or publicly. Can we carry on the conversation, privately? How many employees do you have? What are your challenges? My challenge is this, this, and this. Again, related to the topic, and ask them to engage. A lot of these people are not social media savvy, let's call it. So they don't have a lot of people engaging with them. Some of them have, 300 connections. So if you only have 300 connections, they're not getting a lot of emails. So they're going to welcome an email from you, especially if your profile is properly written, and that's a different video. It has to be properly written. It has to be associated with their industry in one way, shape, or form. We can talk about that later. But it has to be engaging, and it has to be non-threatening to that group. Okay. We obviously have 10 or 12 groups. So if you want to test a question, test it in those groups first. And I'm trying to think how we can get you invited to those groups. I mean, send me an email on Facebook. Tell me who you are, who you're working for, and I connect you with some of the groups. So what I'm trying to say is any well thought out conversation or question can create a lot of engagement on Facebook. LinkedIn is a different story. LinkedIn, it's harder to get engagement. On LinkedIn, you would have a different strategy to get engagement. Software will play a part on both Facebook and LinkedIn. So I hope this helps. And if you want to know what this conversation is about, I mean, make sure you are a member of this, because you should be testing on these groups. And this group has 331,000 members. So you should be testing on these groups, because chances are the groups that you want to get engagement in are going to have 20,000 or 5,000 or 3,000 members, which is more difficult to get engagement. And for those smaller groups, you really have to be on their side. You have to be a friend of theirs, and being a connection, having something in common with them is going to be crucial on smaller groups to get comments anywhere from 10 to 20 or 100 comments. It's going to be more difficult, and you have to engage more often and develop that trust. So make sure you join, Construction Tips Fund Fails. There's also Construction Pros. There's a number of painting groups. Do a search on groups. Use this tab. I'm sure you know what that is. Do a search there for painting or whatever the product is, and start joining these groups. Before you start or posting comments, I would suggest you engage first. Maybe engage for a week or so in that group, so they know who you are, so they know you're not a scammer. Because if you post the wrong question and you're tagged as a scammer or someone who's trying to sell them something, you're creating the job is going to be 10 or 20 times or 1,000 times more difficult. So if you are a plumber, they're going to engage with a plumber. If you are a painter, they're going to engage with a painter. Okay. So join these groups, follow me, follow my conversations, so you get a sense of what types of questions to ask similar questions. Also, when you see a post that has a lot of engagement, copy the question, change it a little bit, and reuse it in other groups, not the same group, in other groups, okay? Like I said, I'm a member of at least 150 or 200 groups. I'm not active on all of them, but I'm active on at least 10 or 12 that have a lot of engagement, and you'll find out which ones those are very quickly. So join these groups, join these conversations, and start engaging, start building trust. Like I said, if you're wondering how does this work, a connection, let's say with a real estate agent, as an example, he may have 1,000 or 2,000 clients. So building trust with him is almost the equivalent of building trust with 2,000 clients, because when he refers you to his clients that need your services, then that's like engaging with 1,000 or 2,000 people, because our recommendation is worth a lot of money. Okay, so read, getting engaged, post a lot of content, post a lot of questions, post a lot of videos. Obviously, on Facebook profile, you can post a lot of information as well. Okay, so here's another group before I let you go. This one is Lawn Care Pros. It has 30,000 connections. And, what do you do when someone says you are too expensive? So it's basically the same question that I rephrase for lawn jobs. Okay. And obviously this one has 65 comments. This one is, again, construction tips, fun fails. What's the biggest deal you've lost? And this one has 46. Plumbing, another question. So when you write a question, you want to post that question to, 5, 10, or 15 groups, but make sure you only do 3 groups at a time, wait a few hours, then post it 3 more groups, or else Facebook will shut you down. Okay, they're going to see you as a spammer. I can do it in 5 groups at a time because I've been doing it for a while, and Facebook doesn't see me as a spammer. Okay, so very small steps to make sure you don't get shut down by Facebook. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to post this video on YouTube. Please ask questions on this video and other videos, and I'll try and answer them. That way I know who's watched this video and what type of help you need, okay? So have fun. You have the most funnest job. You get paid for playing on social media. Everybody else has to do it for free, and they don't get paid. So enjoy your job. This should be fun for you, and let's make some money. Let's build some connections. All right, we'll talk soon. Bye.